That Was Yesterday podcast is brought to you by Define Mind and Body Wellness, my wellness center here in Glastonbury, Connecticut, where we specialize in holistic services to help shortcut the process so that you can see results fast, but learn to do it in a habitual way. So many of the topics we talk about are part of the program that our clients receive, except they get much more in-depth detail. Also, my workbook of the 10-week program to lose and never look back, which is only available to our patients at Define. If you are interested in holistic body fat spot reduction, or our pod to increase your metabolism, or our cold plunge, or our sauna, which is the best sauna in the world, that I promise you. I know that sounds biased, but you'll see for yourself. Please go to definewellnesscenter.com. You will be prompted to put your information in, and make sure to mention podcast when you do, as you will be eligible for a bigger discount on our introductory services because you are a listener. Appreciate you. Have a great day and enjoy today's podcast. What's up, and welcome back to another episode of the That Was Yesterday podcast. I'm your host, Joe Carabasi, and today I am taking you through one of the live trainings from the Food Noise Challenge that I put together. And so there are 3 of those live trainings, and then in the Food Noise Challenge, which takes place in my online inner circle, if you will, training platform, there are daily small prompts as well as 5 to 15 minute audios with some light hypnosis to help reinforce these changes. So the lives that I'll be sharing here on the podcast are essentially the teachings that I did live. And then there's a whole other component to the Food Noise Challenge. So if you are somebody who has a lot of food noise or feels like your cravings are uncontrollable, I highly recommend you at least start with a 5-day Food Noise Fix Challenge. You can access that at definewellnesscenter.com/food noise. Or if you are one of our active Define patients, you have active credits with Define, and you are in my online platform already, which, by the way, is free and available to all of our current Definers, then you will actually find this Food Noise Challenge if you click under Classrooms on the platform. So, with that said, enjoy today's talk, and I'll see you in the next episode. All right, we are live. Welcome. Day 1. Here we are. Excited or what? I am very excited for this for you guys. This, it's one of those things, right, where you're a lot closer than you think. Without a question, food noise can be very distracting, and unfortunately, so many people are dealing with it right now. But it does take effort, right? It does take effort, and I want to be very clear, because that's one of the things that can really get in the way of people making progress, is to just sort of have this, illusion of like magic trick or a button or something, where if you just show up once, or if you read something once, or if you listen to something once, or if you put your information in for a challenge once, and nothing happens, then it's like, well, this doesn't work for me. And I can promise you that if you take this challenge seriously, you will absolutely, without question, notice a difference. And the cool thing is you just need a few minutes a day. All right. And obviously all of us are coming in at, into this challenge at different points in our life. Some people have louder food noises than others. And so there's a whole lot there. So we are all different on that path, but without question, if you put a little bit of effort every day over the next 5 days, you will absolutely experience a difference. All right. So the goal here is to just sort of go over kind of like the lay of the land, so to speak, and then get into lowering the noise, because that is ultimately why we're still here. And there's some very important things you guys need to know with that. But before we do get into today's sort of topic, I do want to make sure that you are good to go with the site, right? So everything with this challenge will be hosted right here on the school platform. Now, my group, so to speak, the Reveal Project, is a group on the school platform. So as you know, you need the school app to access all of this stuff. So under Classrooms in this app is where you're going to, under Classroom is where you're going to find the Food Noise Challenge resources. So every day there's going to be an audio released, and make sure you start with day 0, right? That's today's would be day 1. If you haven't listened to day 1 yet, and if you haven't listened to day 0 yet, then listen to day 0, then day 1, and go in that sequence. But each day there will be an audio released, and the goal is going to be anywhere from like 5 to 15 minutes. And the goals of those is to help reset the nervous system and start to help rewire the brain with the way it thinks about food and food noise. So they're very powerful. You just got to be in a quiet place. I recommend to, even if you are in a quiet place, to still wear headphones, close your eyes, turn off all notifications. That is how you will get the most out of it. And then from there, make sure that, I'll be putting a daily prompt in the food noise discussion each day. The more you participate, the more you will get out of this. I can promise you. So much of food noise is top of mind awareness. It's just something that is consuming your consciousness. So if we can start to take steps to lower it consciously with intention, that alone is going to make a difference. Then once you start to reset your nervous system and do some emotional clearing, you really will be shocked. So that is one thing that I would really highly encourage you to do, is just to participate in the daily prompt. And something else that'd be really powerful to do if you don't yet is to journal. So if you don't journal regularly, I would recommend you start doing that, just with the thoughts you have that are coming up day to day, and how they may be affecting you or not, because you'd be surprised, but so oftentimes food noise isn't related to just food. There's a lot more going on. So the more awareness you can have around what's going on in your psyche, and the more you can sort of empty it out. Like, there's so much, oftentimes, I don't want to say garbage, but things that are occupying the front of our mind that really are not in our best interest to focus on. When you journal, you create a level of objectivity from those thoughts. So you kind of step back and you can have more clarity around what's in your mind. When you're trying to do something, whether it's transform your entire body, lower food noise, or whatever it might be, we want to make sure that what you are focusing on is going to support those goals, right? So journaling helps in that way. So this is a 5-day challenge. You're going to have access to this site for the next 7 days. There's a lot of other good stuff on here other than just the food noise challenge. You can explore under classrooms. There's first step workouts for people who are not currently working out, who don't need any equipment, who could have any injury in the world, who can still do them in little as 5 minutes. There's more follow along, full body workouts with me coaching you along the way. There's our Never Look Back eating system, and there's a lot of other good stuff. So definitely make sure to peek around. All right. So with that said, let's get into this today. Let's start here. So what I want you guys to understand, maybe first and foremost, this has nothing to do with willpower. I know that sounds crazy, but it has nothing to do with willpower. Food noise is very common. It's not a character flaw. It's really a symptom, oftentimes, of some sort of unresolved, perhaps trauma, insecurity, failure from the past. But there's something connected there that is driving the need to make you feel like you need to think about food, whether that's the fear of gaining the weight back or overeating, whatever it might be. That fear is there for a reason. And so that's going to be in your head regularly, but it really has nothing to do with willpower. I can guarantee you listening to this, you have already, by the time you listen to this, you probably have already done something today that you didn't want to do, but you did anyway. And you probably do that every single day. It could be as little as brushing your teeth. It could be something like anything to do with parenting, getting your kids ready, making sure they get out the door, packing their lunch, driving them to school, whatever that is. There is something in there. And willpower is oftentimes reflected in doing things that we take for granted all the time, right? So it's really important as we move through this to acknowledge that you're actually outlying a ton of willpower each and every day. We tend to focus on moments where we feel like we lack willpower. Perhaps you're at a Starbucks, you're having a bad day, you grab a donut, whatever it is, right? But that's not the only moment of the day of which you demonstrated willpower. And so we tend to focus on those areas and moments where we lacked, but really
you're exercising willpower throughout the day, every day. And it's important to separate that from food noise because they are separate. You have plenty of willpower, that I can promise you. And if you're having a hard time sort of like vibing with this and understanding this, or really anything we talk about over the next the 5 days, like, you guys have access to me for free over the next 5 days. I have helped thousands of people in your situation. I can promise you there is not a situation, a circumstance, a thought that you've gone through that we have not been able to resolve and help that person move forward. So you got to communicate. If you keep it in, you're going to stay stuck. That I can promise. So need you to understand that when food feels loud, means your system is trying to regulate something. And if food feels louder than it should, then that just means that there's likely something under the surface that needs to be sort of looked at, right? It's like if you're driving your car and the car starts to smoke out of the hood, there's probably something going on there, right? You wouldn't just be like, oh, this car's just broken. Get out of that. Gonna go buy a new one, right? You'd be like, oh, I got to get this fixed. And that's the thing. And the difference, though, in that example is that there's really nothing we got to fix here. The term is more so heal and recognize and become aware of. And in so doing, then the issue gets fixed. So, one of the things that we're talking about first is that, if your nervous system is overstimulated, which, let's be honest, so many of our nervous systems are overstimulated in the world we live in, right? We have this thing on us all the time. You may or may not recognize, but like the notifications alone, like, forget about being on social media and seeing and hearing things that you were never intended to hear and see, right? When our brain was developing way back when, pre-civilization, those early ancestors didn't have access to the entire world and the entire world's traumas in their pocket. They just had their local situation, their self, those issues. And those are some serious issues. There was life or death, right? But still, nonetheless, there was a lot less going on. That's how our nervous system was evolved and still is the same operating system as it is now. The problem is, we are exposed to way too much throughout you can make whatever argument you want, but at the end of the day, we are overcapacitated when it comes to information, and in particular, negative information. And that's an issue because often when we have unresolved traumas inside, the overexposure to world issues everywhere else, and maybe even in America, but that are not directly affecting you in this moment today, it's going to worsen whatever's in the underlying, right? And so when that's the case, and then of course life is just stressful, right? There's a lot of other things that go on that in life that are less than ideal at times. You might have more family stuff going on right now. You might have more personal stuff going on, maybe some health issues. So like, we all have all of this stuff that's constantly going on. If you are not intentional about regulating your nervous system, it's going to be out of whack. It's going to be into that fight or flight state. And in that state, it's looking for fast relief. And what gives you fast relief? Go ahead, answer. What do you think it is? Food, right? Does it get any faster? And I mean, shoot, tastes pretty damn good too. That doesn't hurt, you know? So if your nervous system is out of whack, it's going to be very hard to curb any cravings until that goes down, which is why it's so important, these daily audios that I give you are light hypnosises to get you calm. Hypnosis is a fancy word for deep relaxation. That's all it is. I'm not going to convince you to do anything. You can't do anything you do not want to do or will not do. You will not say anything you don't want to do or anything you don't want to say in hypnosis. You're in full control. You're just deeply relaxed. And so the problem, a lot of people know about meditation, know how good meditation is, you hear about, and you have this image of what it takes to meditate. And oftentimes we think that us busy people living this crazy world should be able to meditate as good as a monk. Yeah, you should be able to sit down, get physically comfortable, and be mentally comfortable and quiet and all of that. That's just not how it works. Like, that was never the intention of meditation, but it's our perception of what meditation should be. And that's a big disconnect. So the problem when we try to meditate is that physically we feel uncomfortable, or mentally we're like, this isn't working because my mind's wandering. The difference between that and hypnosis is that hypnosis is getting you into a deep state of relaxation. So using the power of the imagination of the subconscious mind to help use visuals. The mind is very simple in a way that it's responsive and receptive to visuals and to repetition. And then as a hypnotist, I'm guiding you through that process so that you're not lost in your thoughts. That's all it is. That's all it is. And so, but that it's not just going to help gain clarity, and it's not just going to help eventually rewire some of the old programming. It's also going to regulate your nervous system. And that is so important, because if you can just do that, you're going to find yourself already have more control. Like, I promise you, if nothing else, by doing the daily audios, listening to the daily audios with the intention of getting better, you will find yourself, you will find the volume of the food noise lower. You'll find yourself pausing more before eating something that you might have not thought twice about the week prior. All right. So this is an important thing to understand as well. We talked about this is not a willpower issue. And when we try to make it a willpower issue, then we quote unquote fail, because willpower lives in the thinking brain. It lives in the conscious space, because and cravings are coming more from like the survival part, right? In other words, cravings are oftentimes coming because something feels unsettled. And so the brain has connected the relationship between settling emotions, between discomfort and food. There's a sort of a reward structure that was built somewhere along the way. So, when you really feel sort of like ramped up, so to speak, or you've been in a tough period of time for a long period of time, or you've overcome a lot of issues, and you're looking right at the finish line. Like, this is a conversation I have a lot with my GL1P patients, who they're like, I'm afraid to go off because of what my mind's going to do. Right. But when all of that stuff's going on, and especially when you feel like it has to be willpower that's going to get you off, that basically creates a division between like reality and your internal self. And so, in other words, like, you're trying to mask up there's no amount of willpower ultimately that's going to overcome unresolved issues and trauma. So we can't really but then what ends up happening is, because that happens, you then often will shame yourself. Well, what's wrong with me? I don't have willpower. I don't have discipline, because you feel like it didn't work for you. But when really willpower is never really supposed to work in that way, right? Again, we got to go back to like, why is your system in that fight or flight nervous system response? What's going on, in your world that's leading to the chronic state of stress? And then what is that bringing up from your past? And then that all links into food and body image and all of these things. So really, what's important for you guys to understand is that you don't change your behavior first. You change your state. Lowering the noise is going to restore choice. It's going to restore clarity. It's going to restore self-control. And so it truly is the calm before the storm. And one of the things that you'll notice is, as your urgency and your nervous state starts to settle in, cravings become more optional, not like urgent. And the other thing is that we're not removing cravings. We're removing the pressure. This is another issue so many people face. When you are transforming your body, you are changing, or at least you want to, you have the intention to. Naturally, you're creating this level of pressure, and there's gonna be a part of you that thinks, well, can't have this anymore, can't have that anymore. I'm gonna do this, and when I lose weight, then I will. and all of these things. What you're really doing is creating pressure. And ultimately, it's a form of self sabotage because it's just not going to be sustainable for you to cut things out and to keep it like that forever. So we're lowering the noise. We are not removing cravings. We are not saying you can never have the thing that you want to have. All right. So really, what it looks like in real life, in terms of when the food noise volume goes down, is that it's still the craving's still going to show up, and that's a thing that is so hard for. Sometimes I see people try to to understand as they're going through change. It's in a similar way, like if you're working with a trainer and you're working out regularly when you don't have the trainer, like at some point, likely you're gonna feel until you really start to make significant headway, you're gonna start probably feel like you used to feel about fitness, like, oh, I can't do this, I don't want to do this, I don't have the energy, whatever else. Or, if and again, that just creates the noise. That creates the noise. But it's like, well, look, as somebody who I've worked out on average at least 4 to 5 times, and I'm not exaggerating, per week, or bragging, by the way, but using this as an example, um, per week over the last 33 years, 23 years, sorry. I am 38. I started when I was 14. So 14, 15. So, but 23 years. Okay. Almost most of those days, I did not want to work out, but I don't have that noise around, well, you don't want to work out, you can't work out, you shouldn't work out, whatever that self sabotage is, because for me, understanding about fitness has been an important part of my life, but I've also had an understanding on it where that recognize that as a way out, right? As a way to help with things that I had dealt with in my life. And so I have a different relationship with working out. So as much as I don't want to work out, sometimes I recognize, well, if I go through the workout, I will be better off. Right. And if I don't, I also understand that it's okay. I'm just going to start back tomorrow. Right. But the point is that someone who might not have that relationship with exercise yet will feel the same way I feel day to day about working out. I don't feel like it, don't have time, yada, yada, yada. That noise is really loud for them. All right. But it's going to be there no matter what. So the way to tone the noise down is just understand I'm an imperfect human. I'm going to have thoughts that are going to distract me and sabotage my effort. That's okay. So what lowering the food noise looks like is when a craving shows up, it's like, it's not worrying about it. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, there it is. It's like, it's just gonna feel less demanding. So don't be afraid and shocked when that craving arises, or that thought, or that question, or whatever your food noise looks like when that arises. That's a this is such a subtle yet important thing. It's a part of being human. You realize you are gonna have thousands of thoughts you don't want every day. You just don't focus on most of them. So something's an invitation for you to recognize that if I have a craving, if I have a thought, I don't have to go down that rabbit hole. I don't have to give in. So as a food noise becomes less, you are going to start to pause without forcing yourself, without requiring quote unquote discipline or willpower. You're going to start to accept that you are a messy human, and that, okay, you had that craving. Who gives a shit? Instead of spiraling, right? There's something I talk about called strength versus acceptance. Is that, like, I give an exercise to patients where you can write on a post-it note. You draw a line down the center, and on the left side you write strength, on the right side, left side strength, on the right side acceptance, and you put that on a cabinet where you have your craving, so to speak. And whenever you think about that craving, you don't get it, you tally strength, and when you think about it and you do get it, you tally acceptance. What that does is help you understand exactly what we're talking about. Is you have to accept that you are a messy and perfect human. There are so many other things at play for your attention and your control and all these other things. You're not going to be able to manage them perfectly all the time, especially if it's been an issue for you in the past. Accept that. It's okay. To the extent you can accept it and not fight it, you gain control. And what you're going to also start to notice is that when you do start to pause and settle your nervous system, the food thoughts are going to pass quicker than you think. And sometimes the win is just noticing what didn't happen. Oftentimes, that's what progress is going to look like. Progress, again, is not going to be, I do not think about food. I am a, like you're not a robot. You are a human. So, we got to make sure we treat ourselves like that and with love, right? All right. So, some really cool tools you can use. So, remember, there's a lot that goes into this, but there are tools that also work. All right. So, cravings tend to peak and fall within 60 to 90 seconds. So, pausing interrupts the loop. No decision is required. We're just asking you to pause. And so, when a craving hits, don't decide. I literally just want you to focus on taking 5 to 6 deep breaths and pausing. That's it. That's literally all you have to do. Notice I didn't say, don't have the craving. No, I don't honestly care what you do after that point yet. Because I know over time, if you're doing this pause, you're going to gain back control. The problem is if you don't do this pause, then you're going to be forced with this need to have all this willpower in a moment, or you do it once or twice and you're like, oh, it didn't work for me. And you just give up completely. That's impossible. Like literally if you did that exercise I just said with the strength versus acceptance, you're going to have a lot more strengths tallied than you'll notice, than you would have thought otherwise. That's powerful. And those are moments you never would have acknowledged otherwise. That's why we do it, for you to acknowledge and pause. The pause is very important. So I don't care what happens after. Just focus on 5 deep breaths when the craving, the food noise, and it could just not even have to be a craving. It could be the food noise. When is lunch? What am I going to eat for lunch? What if I make a bad decision? What if when I go off the GLP, I gain the weight back? Whatever that noise is, when it happens in real time, literally just pause. And sometimes it's important to like pinch yourself, so that breaks your automatic response, your nervous response, so it can kind of bring you into the moment. Then from there, and then you might even find yourself smile as you're pausing, as you're like, I feel silly right now, or whatever it might be. But again, just have the intention that this will work for you and do it regularly, and it's going to work. I promise you that. Okay. The next tool I want you to do, and this is a really important one, and it's an easy one for you to do, is every time you eat, have a protein. Every time. I have no issue with fruits or vegetables, but especially when you do have fruits, they are sweet, which is okay. No one has ever gotten overweight by eating sugars from fruit. That has never been the reason why people have gotten overweight. So let's not blame fruits for that, and let's not harp on fruits for that. But the point is, whether it's something like that or anything else, have protein. It's going to help stabilize your blood sugar. When your blood sugar has stabilized, you're going to have quieter cravings. Okay. The next thing is limit naked carbs. Naked carbs are any carbohydrates without nutritional value. So without protein as nutritional value, or say omega-3 fatty acids, without micronutrients, without fiber, right? Sweet potatoes have fiber, right? Just French fries have almost nothing, right? Again, not French fries, like general French fries. Obviously, potato French fry, sweet potato French fries, a little bit different. But you got to understand, nutrition does play a role in this. I don't care how good your mind is, if you are not, running, if you're not putting your body in a position to win most of the time, you're gonna be battling up against that, and you have enough going on. You don't need that too. So recognize that this is a part of it. This the idea of nutrition, and that every time you eat, have a protein. Try to avoid naked carbs as much as possible. Just do that stuff. It's not restriction. It's just regulation. All right. And remember, this doesn't have to be a diet. You don't have to be perfect. 2 words always make sure to never use are always and never, right? Because again, you're a messy, imperfect human like me and like everybody else who's ever existed. Get over it. Not a big deal. But if you can understand that and get over it, you won't let it weigh you down. All right. So let's get into a little bit of regulation exercise. And so if you are driving right now, then just listen. Don't participate per se. I want to make sure that you're fully focused on driving. Otherwise, I would invite you to just lay your hair down, drop your shoulders back, get comfortable and ground your feet into the chair. And when you feel ready, you feel comfortable, let your eyelids shut. And we're just going to slow the breathing down. I want you to inhale through the count of 4 into the nose. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then I want you to hold your breath. 4, 3, 2, 1. And then slowly exhale out the mouth. 4, 3, 2, 1. Really good. Now, same cadence. Again, inhale through the nose. Calm, relaxation, inner peace. Now hold. You are in charge of your breath. You are in charge of your being. You are in control. Now slowly release anything that no longer serves you. Just let it go. Just release it. Really good. Now I want you to bring up a mild craving, whatever it might be. And you know what? It might be a loud craving. Whatever comes to mind. There's no right or wrong answers. Whatever your mind gives you, whatever serves up on a platter. I want you to think about that. And now I want you to imagine your car stereo could be your stereo at home, but the volume dial, like the old school, I'm talking like the big dials. I want you to visualize that dial. What does it look like? Is it black? Is it brown? Is there any color there? Is there something that indicates a negative and a positive or a low and a high? Whatever that is, I want you to put your brain there. I want you to imagine it as if it was right in front of you. And now I just want you to see yourself with the craving in mind. I want you to see, go to that dial and just turn it down. That's it. All we're doing here is reclaiming space. That's all. And I invite you in the future where the voice gets loud, whether it's the questions of like, what's going to happen if, what if I don't eat clean? What if I mess up? Whatever that is, just imagine a dial tone and just turn it down. And in so doing, you're creating space, therefore separation, and you're regaining control. You can allow yourself to sort of like come to a little bit, smile. You just did something for yourself. Feel good about it. Any progress is progress. I always tell people something above nothing is progress, no matter what that form takes. And it could be anything. Anything above nothing is something. It's called progress. So give yourself credit for what you just did. And just like everything else, like there's literally not one thing, if you're being honest, there's literally not one thing in your life that you heard once and you did it once and it was perfect, therefore after. Like you didn't learn to drive that way. Certainly didn't learn to walk that way. We tend to forget that. But there's a period of time where you were falling quite a bit. You couldn't even crawl. What's wrong with you? You're human. That's like what happened to me and everybody else ever. Nobody came out of the womb like sprinting, walking. No, that didn't happen. There was a process that took place, as with everything else. I'm sure you're really good at something. Maybe it's being a parent. Maybe it's being a friend. Maybe it's good at your job. I don't know. Maybe it's good at your hobby. Maybe you know all the stats for the Giants. I don't know what it is for you, but you're good at a lot of things. But whatever it is that you are good at, if you're actually going to be objective and honest, if you looked at it, you'd recognize that you didn't just get good at that thing. It took attention, it took focus, it took time. So just remember that as you move forward, because it's really important. All right. So as we're wrapping this thing up, don't try to be perfect. Don't test yourself and don't judge what comes up. Don't judge what happens. Your job today is only start to notice the differences. Start utilizing the pause. Listen to the audio that I sent if you haven't already. Awareness beats effort every single time. So it's like, how do we create awareness? We regulate your nervous system. We install the breathing before we eat, right? We think about the way foods will affect us, i.e., you probably haven't thought about naked carbs before and how that affects your blood sugar and therefore your cravings, right? So having the awareness of what you're putting into your body and what you're putting into your mind and what you're allowing to stay into your mind. That's all. That's all. And so I would invite you, after you listening to this, I want to hear from you. And maybe do this at the end of the day today. Did you feel even slightly different in any way? Was there something that was said or something that was done that you did along the lines of this program that made any slight difference? Was there a moment where the food noise felt quieter. Pick up on it. Think about it. Let's say if your kid was struggling with confidence and he was the worst athlete on his team. I know you love him, but let's just be honest. Let's say he was the worst on the team. And everybody else is sort of having wins around him and, hitting the ball and catching the ball and doing all this stuff. I would hope as a parent, let's use the case of baseball. If a kid didn't hit a home run and was able to get outs, if he didn't do that, we wouldn't be like, you sucked. What's wrong with you? You wouldn't do that. You'd probably be like, well, it looks like you were having fun out there. Like, you got up to the plate. That's awesome. You showed up. You did really good at practice. Like, you find things that they did, efforts to reward those efforts. Why? Well, because we want to reinforce effort. Because what we know over time is that if you put effort in, you get result, especially if it's the right type of effort. And so with a kid, you would never want to take a kid who is unskilled to set the expectation up that he's going to hit a home run every time. That would be really detrimental. And unfortunately, there are some parents who do that. But if you, especially hearing this, like, you wouldn't do that. So don't do that to yourself. Like, this takes practice. This takes positive sort of expectancy. You got to want it to work and believe that it will work if you put the effort in. Make sense? So find the little bits of progress, whatever it might be. Change is not always going to feel dramatic. Sometimes it's subtle. And subtle changes are stable changes. Remember that one. Write that one down. Subtle changes are stable changes. So even if you felt a small percentage of a shift today, it means your system is learning. Most programs out there talk about food noise. It starts with discipline. Hey, do this thing every single time, or whatever it might be, or diet. Ours starts with regulation, because that's what lasts. So, appreciate you showing up, listening to this. Comment below. Let me know how you kind of took this in, if you have any questions. And keep showing up each and every day, doing your best to follow the plan. You got this.